Hello, everybody. Welcome to Ashton College's info session for our Autism ABA therapy training. This is part of our continuing education programs. So if you're joining us today over Zoom, you can type your questions into the chat. If you're joining us via our Facebook Live, you can type your questions and comments there. It'll take us a little bit of a time lag, but we'll get to them and we'll answer them. If you're joining us in the future over YouTube, hi, hello, welcome to have you. We'll be able to answer your questions while you're getting in touch with our admissions team. So Suzanne, how are we doing today?
We're doing good. It's pouring rain, but
It's Vancouver weather.
it's yeah. Well, I'm in the Fraser Valley, so for me, it's normal.
All right, Suzanne, fair enough. So Suzanne, who's with us today, is one of our main instructors for Ashton College's Human Services, and you've actually designed this course that we're offering for us.
Yes, when it comes to the human services programs, I mean, this is part of in so many of our continuing education courses under the human services, it's taking bits and pieces from the courses that our students take in the education assistant diploma program. So it's just taking aspects of that. So in the full program, our students get 5 weeks of autism and 6 weeks of applied behavioral analysis. So just doing a little combination of the two of those into a continuing education course. So pretty easy to put together.
Yes, this is a relatively short course that covers the highlights from both, but I believe that everyone who takes this is going to come out learning a little bit of something. Now, Suzanne, how about we go over just some definitions of how the course views and explains these things so everyone's on the same page?
Sure. Okay, so this course is done 33 hours over 11 weeks. We use case studies, mini quizzes, videos, and the whole purpose of the CE course is to learn more about the neurodiversity that exists within autism. So it's understanding that this is brain-based. So we need to understand what's going on with that. So we look at the causes, we look at the characteristics, and we look at the characteristics all through the lifespan. So from childhood into adulthood, we look at the diagnostic tools that are used to diagnose autism. And my favorite part is we've got 2 sections on toolbox building. So if you think that everyone has a toolbox, and inside their toolbox are all of the tools that they need in order to navigate a complex world. For small children, they've got some tools, and they may not be the right tools for the right task. So they need to learn which tools are going to help them and which tools are not going to help them. Some people are born with no tools, so they have to be given the tools that they need in order to navigate. So when we talk about interventions and strategies, I like to refer to it as toolbox building and toolbox cleanup. And that's cleaning up those tools that no longer serve a purpose. They're old, they're rusty, they're falling apart, and there's much better tools that can help them. So we spend a lot of time with that. We look at sensory processing as well, because that is an important part. We look at communication and social stories. And we spend half of that time also talking about and looking at the responsible use of ABA, which I know is a controversial topic, and we'll get there. But it's the responsible use. So it's not just the use of. It's how to do this the way that it's supposed to be done, not the way necessarily that it is done.
Yes, of course.
That's
And that's
the gist of that 11 weeks.
okay. All right. Yeah, no, that's a pretty nice little overview, and we're definitely going to set aside a good chunk of time today just to like talk more in detail about the ABA aspect because it does deserve to like clarify what we're
Absolutely.
saying, what we're going to do. But before we get to that, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions more about like who more about the course like itself. So obviously like this course is about like training people to provide tools, like mindset to be able to give like autistic people and like the tools they need to succeed. So is this course targeted for a more general audience, or it sounds like there's specific people who get more out of it?
Well, there are specific people that would get a lot more out of this. So if you're currently an education assistant, and you want further training and understanding in autism and ABA, this is perfect. If you're a teacher who wants to learn more about autism because you have children with autism in your classroom and you don't know enough about it, this is going to be very helpful. And then just for people in general who want to get a better understanding of autism, maybe they know a family who has children with autism, and they just want to get a better understanding of it. I think when it comes to acceptance, and inclusion and what that means in its true form, on that general basis, anyone can take this course. But we do have specific people, within the education field, within the support field, that should ensure that they've got a really strong understanding of what autism is and what autism isn't, and what ABA is and what ABA isn't.
Okay, that is very good to know. And yeah, no, definitely something that like a lot people like especially now should be like upskilling and making sure they understand given like the way we understand things now compared to before, even when I was going through school, which wasn't that long ago, but it's been a long enough time that some things definitely have changed for the better. Okay, so obviously like you're going to get the most out of this if you are in the education field in some fact. But like, what sort of qualities are really going to like, does this sort of, what sort of qualities do you need like as a student to really succeed in this type of class?
Be open-minded. You need to be open-minded. You need to be prepared to shift the way that you think at times. So we always talk about doing a paradigm shift, in the way that we think, in the things that we think we know. It's about getting rid of the myths and the misconceptions of autism and of ABA, and really understanding that your role is to support the person, um, and not fix them, not change them, not control them, not. Autism is not a bad thing.
Hmm.
It's not a bad thing, and it shouldn't be a bad word. And the characteristics that they have, are no different in the scheme of things in characteristics that we all have. How much do you want to be fixed, Matthew, and who you are? Do you like who you are? If you like who you are, why would we play with that
Hmm.
and go, well, see, I don't like the way that you are. So because I don't like the way that you are, you need to fit according to me. And that's not what this should be.
Of course. No, that's definitely good. I mean, no, even as like even in like regular perspective, like that's something to emphasize. Like nobody wants to be controlled. Somebody who's going on saying, "I don't like this about you. Change it now." Like nobody wants that. So why should that be how we've approached it continue
No,
to approach it? Okay. Okay. Obviously, like this class is tackling some relatively big topics. So, what are your expectations for students who are taking this like through our live online program, and like what sort of teaching? I'm sorry, are you going to be the instructor for the next time we're running
I
this, or?
won't be the instructor for this one. Um, we'll be using, I believe. Maya Sterling will be doing the instruction for it. This is her niche. This is her field. And I have full confidence in her being able, and it's an area that she's excited about and she's got the passion for. So
Okay.
she's going to be an ideal one. Not that I don't have the passion for it, but I've got other roles and other avenues that I do as well. So being able to do this one at this point is not my option, but Maya, this is going to be her passion and like I said, her niche. So the students will do very well.
Okay, that definitely answers like the teaching style. It sounds they're going to be in very good hands. So in that mind, what would you say? What would you say about the other part of that question? What should students? What's the expectation of students taking this class like as part of a live online classroom?
Well, they need to attend. They need to be active participants. It's no fun teaching anything online if the people that are taking it just sit there and don't participate, don't ask questions, don't, we want to encourage, we want to encourage discussions. We want to know opinions and feedback. We want to know them respectfully, but we want to be able to really help people to understand, and we do that by having two-way discussions, by looking at different scenarios, by looking at the realities, because not only, in just teaching this, we also have to have the understanding of what education is depending on the province or state that you live in. And I say state because the last CE course that I taught, I had a student from South Carolina in it. So our programs do reach far and wide. So we also need to understand where our obstacles and barriers are going to be within the education system itself. All these great things that we want to do and that we want to give our students so that they're empowered to do these things within the education system itself also has to be able to support that as well. So we do have to look at that side of it too. So it's always good to know where the students are coming from so we can
Mhm.
have an understanding of what it's like in their province or
Yes.
state.
Yes. No, that is one thing about education, the way it is like currently administered, like all the various regional differences, like you have to tailor everything a little bit. You can't like over specialize because we are online, but like it definitely like helps that student if students can speak up and like help make it match a bit more of their specific circumstances.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. And so what are some of the competencies you hope that like somebody has after they've completed this course? Like, what do you expect them to be able to comfortably say, yes, I feel comfortable talking about, or yes, I have a better understanding of this?
I want on the autism side, I want them to be able to say, I get it. I get it. Not that I just have a book knowledge of autism because anybody can read a book and go, I know about autism, but that they get it, that they've done the shifts in the way that they think and the way that they see a child with autism, in the way that we want them to be able to get rid of the myths and the stereotypes and the old ideas. I want them to really understand what autism is, and what this means, not just to the education, but what it means to the child. They really get to know a child because you meet one child with autism or one person with autism, you've met one person with autism.
Mhm.
So we can't paint every person with autism with that same brush and go, well, because they're all like this. And it's like, no, they're not all like this. They're all, each person has their own. And as we get to know each person, we go, ah, get you.
Mhm.
I get you. I understand it. And whether that's, autism or it's Asperger, You know, it's you start to get it.
Yes. Yes.
When you
And
get it, you stop getting frustrated and you start going, oh, wait a second. I I'm figuring this out. I'm thinking, I know why they're doing this. I know why they're acting that way. I know why they're saying this. I get it. I get it. You know, and that's the biggest thing that I want people to really understand, that when it comes to any disorders or syndromes or disabilities, that they really understand it. And that means you got to get out of your own head sometimes, and that can be hard.
yes, yes.
It's but it's necessary. I expect it from my students in the education program.
Mhm. Of course. And no, it's definitely like I like your point that like you've met one individual with autism, you've met one individual. It is quite literally like in the current DSM autism spectrum. And like I think that's like that kind of drives point the home the point further. There are people that are in very different points that will need very different kinds of support and like might express it very differently. So like it's not one size fits all. It's
No, no, we tend to generalize, and you can't generalize typical people. You can't generalize atypical either.
mhm,
Everyone's an individual. So you get to know that person on that individual level. There may be some commonalities, but everyone in this world has commonalities,
okay.
right? We need to look at not so much the differences in a negative way. We want to look at those differences and go, oh, so that's how you think. This is how I'm thinking. So for me, in order to talk to you, I need to understand how you think, not change how you think, just understand that.
Mm-hmm.
Then I know how
Right
to
on.
respond.
Yeah, that's perfect. Lo- Definitely a great way to like get things forward. Okay, we've touched a little bit about expectations. We've touched a little bit about like what they're going to learn, what we're defining, like what are the expectations themselves. Um, I guess now would perhaps be an all right time to move on to talking a little bit about the applied behavioral analysis side of things while we have the chance.
Yes. So, okay. So I'm aware. I'm fully aware. There's Facebook groups that I'm part of, and whether or not it's a parent group or it's a professional group, I'm aware that applied behavioral analysis has become this more of a controversy than it used to be. So I've really taken time to try to understand why, based off of what I know, what I've learned, and how I teach my students this, understanding why the controversy is is there. ABA has always been one of the most widely used therapies for autism. Um, a lot of people, though, find that, you know, it's drills and it's routines and the aims that we want for the students are misguided. And I get that. I truly get that. I'm older than I'm sorry, I'm older than ABA is,
Mm-hmm.
since you know, yes, you are. Is, you know, it's got, I get it. No, it's fine. Um, you know, it's, so I get, you know, when I learned ABA, it was still relatively new. The more that we've been finding out about autism, ABA has had to evolve from what it used to be, which when I look at it now, what it used to be was training children to be robots who could recite. It was using punishments for behaviors that the adults didn't want the child to have. And I get that then that's wrong. And if it's still continuing now, it's wrong and should never, never be happening. This is not about doing drills. This is not about using food as a motivator. You know, I mean, it's kind of like, you know, how would you're at work and your boss says, hey, Matthew, I want you to get this paper done. If you can get it done in the next 20 minutes, I'll give you a chocolate bar. Is that going to help you get the paper done?
I mean, probably not. Might make me like a little bit hungry thinking about the chocolate bar, but it's not
If the
going to.
chocolate bar is motivating to you, but we don't give reinforcement for every single thing that a person does. So why we're thinking that this works with children to get them to do what we want them to do, which is how ABA was always seen, is just, it's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's wrong. ABA came around as a formula. It was like a one size fits all. Okay? And again, in the 60s and 70s, this was based on what they knew. This was in the 60s and 70s. This was based on what they knew. We now know so much more about autism, and with that knowledge has to come the changes on how we look at a person with autism, right? As I said before, every child's different. So every intervention and strategy that we use has to be able to individualize the support, okay? Just the other day, there's always times it seems they always talk about big brothers watching on computer, and I've been researching some stuff over the last while, and I came upon a presentation on a website called Neuroclastic.
Mm-hmm.
Purpose is to document the autistic experience through the lens and work of autistic individuals. And the site's amazing, and it should be, people should definitely bookmark that site, support it, read the blogs and whatnot that are in there. But they did a presentation that discussed the differences between the autistic community and the autism community. And I wanted to share a few things from there, just to understand some of the conversations that we're going to hold in this course when it comes to the autism side, and especially when it comes to the ABA. So the autistic community holds values and the beliefs through the neurodiversity model, okay? And they say that autistic people should control the narrative about autism. Totally agree. Autism does not need to be cured. Totally agree. Autistic people are valuable members of the community, deserving autonomy and respect. Absolutely. Autistic people should not need to change their autistic nature to be accepted. The society should be more accepting. They prefer the term identity first language, because the autistic characteristics aren't separate from their identity. It's a part of who they are. So, over the last, 10, 20 years, everyone's going, oh, we have to go person first, right? You have to look at the person first and then the disability rather than the other way around. In the beginning, I was on board with that. I'm not anymore. I get it if being autistic and all the characteristics that they have, that's a part of who they are. You take that away. I remember having a discussion with somebody once, and they said, what if they found a cure for autism? And they could give shot that would fix the whole thing. And so many people with autism went, whoa, 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 whoa. If you do that, if you cure my autism, you're taking away my identity. You're taking away those things that are me. What do we lose out of this? What great things do we lose? What great thoughts and works of art and technologies, and just what do we lose by doing this? So I get why they want that identity first. And they use this, they also use the infinity symbol as to what represents them. The autism community holds these values, but they use the deficit model.
Mm-hmm.
Parents and academics control and maintain ownership of the narrative about autistic people. Yeah, they do. Autism needs to be treated and or cured. I don't agree with that. Autistic people are talked about as burdens on the economy, educators, and families. In the autism community, in schools, they go, oh, I've got a child with autism in my classroom. What am I going to do with them? Oh my God, they got such challenging behaviors. And it's kind of like, why are we, they aren't a burden. They're a challenge, yes, but not a challenge in a bad way. They're a challenge to make us pay attention and think. They have characteristics that I don't have, that, to be honest, I'm kind of jealous about, because they have a capability of seeing things. They have a perspective of this world that we don't. And I'd like to understand their perspective, not everybody else's perspective. They have so much to offer. Autistic people need intensive behavioral interventions to be normal or independent. Do we want to get them as independent as they possibly would like to be, that they would like to be? Absolutely. Do I want them to be normal? What's normal? Normal is the setting on your dryer, but I don't know what normal is. And they prefer the term person first, assuming that the characteristics of someone can be removed, that we can just take away those and then they're not as autistic anymore because we've taken that away. So we're making the assumption when we look at autism, the autism community, and this is everything from Autism Speaks to, any organization
Yes.
that is going, this is what we have to do to fix it. But we don't want to fix, we want to find those ways to support it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we have to understand that, ABA over the years has now become this umbrella term. And underneath that umbrella, okay, so in this particular CE course, which again, my students in the full program get, we talk about pivotal response training, which is it takes away that, one behavior at a time that ABA does. And we look at those areas that like motivation and self-management and social initiations, and take the child's current behaviors and just kind of pivot them so that we can expand them out so that they have more options, they have more opportunities. That is on that. We look at the Early Start Denver model, which is a play-based. It's usually we usually start doing that between the ages of 1 and 4, and that's in a more natural environment. We also look at floor time, and floor time, it takes it out of the adult setting things up. We're entering the child's domain.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking with them, and we're having conversations with them about what it is that they're doing and helping to expand their language skills. But we're doing this as naturally as possible. It's not contrived, it's not set up. It is sincere, but we have to learn how to do that. So we have to learn how to listen, and we have to learn to see the cues. We have to become more observant to see the opportunities in doing those things. So we have to get off of our phones, and we actually have to pay attention to the child, to the person. Right?
You'd think that would be simple, but
It's not nearly as simple as we like to think it is. Okay. The core problem with ABA is that the focus has always been placed on changing the behaviors to make the autistic child appear non-autistic, instead of trying to figure out why the individual is exhibiting a certain behavior. Okay. I teach my students to always try to find out why the behaviors are occurring. You can't just see the behavior. We look at it like an iceberg, okay? You see the behavior. You see the top of an iceberg. So that's the behavior. You don't see all the underlying things that are going on that created that behavior to happen in the first place. And that's what we have to look for. When we see a behavior, we can't go stop doing that. It's like, okay, why is the child doing that? Why is the person doing this? You need to figure it out. If they're nonverbal, if they don't have a way to tell you, our job is to figure that out as best as we can. And we do that by observation, by looking at the environments, by seeing, what occurred just before the child did this, what set that off, and from there we can figure out, okay, so now how can we help the child so that that behavior doesn't have to happen? What can we teach them? What can we give them? What can we change in the environment so that that doesn't happen? If the lights are too bright and the child is always, easy solution, turn the light off or put a different color over it so that it's not as harsh.
Mm-hmm.
Easy solution. It's just changing the environment sometimes. I teach my students that all behavior is learned, that all behavior is communication, and that all behavior is contextual and situational. We need to understand it. We got to figure it out to understand it and not fix it so that it suits us.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be fixed so that it supports the person.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about us, not about what we want. Don't care what we want. What does the child want? What does the child need in order to feel that support? I don't teach ABA to help my students to force children to hide their true nature as to who they are, right?
Mm-hmm.
No child should ever be ashamed of who they are. I teach them to use ABA as well as other therapies. ABA is a small portion. Other therapies to support what's in the best interest of the child from the child, right? It's teaching the skills. We're not suppressing. Some children with autism have stereotypic behaviors. So they might do the hand flapping, they might do the finger flipping, they might do the spinning. They have stimming behaviors. This isn't about stopping the stimming behaviors. We need to understand them. Some do it for calming. Some do it because they're agitated or they're frustrated. It helps to relax them. There's many reasons why it just feels good. We need to understand those behaviors. If we can understand them, then we know how to support the child so that, again, we can take away some of the need for those behaviors because we've changed the environment so that it better suits them. Doesn't mean we're taking away all of those behaviors, and we don't need to, because some of those behaviors are just fine. No different than the person who, twirls their hair and aren't even aware that they're doing it, or they're aware that they're doing it. That's what they do, or they pick their fingers, or, or they cross their legs and their one leg's doing this all the time. And it's like, why do people do that? So instead of just going, stop it. It's annoying. Stop it. So we don't want to do that. We want to help a child who can't communicate to begin to talk and engage with other kids at school. And whether or not it's going to be the verbal language or it's coming out of an electronic communication board or through text symbols, they deserve the right to have a way to communicate. Because when you can't communicate, behaviors come out. If somebody's not understanding what it is that you're trying to say, you're going to step up to get the attention because they're not getting it. So we need to help them with that. We need to teach them those ways that they can get their needs met.
Mm-hmm.
So it's being able to function around the areas that the individual chooses, not on changing who they are. Okay. We also have to understand that ABA doesn't work on everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's a big one. And not all parts of ABA will work with everyone. So again, every child's different. You can't use the cookie cutter approach. There are some aspects of ABA I advocate for and I use. Okay. But it's based on the premise of manipulating environmental variables to bring about a behavior change. We aren't trying to change the person. We aren't trying to change how they think. We aren't trying to change how they feel. We need to understand how each person's brain works, how they think, and not look at it as something negative that needs to go away. We have to look at it at, so this is how he thinks. So this is how we're going to teach him how to live in the world. We're changing environmental variables, and that automatically changes behavior. When all the grocery stores now that have that one day a week for a few hours, it's autism friendly.
Mm-hmm.
They turn the music off and they turn the lights down.
Yep.
And Starbucks stop serving their noisy coffee, and they just quiet everything down. So now families can take their children with autism into the store, and guess what? For some of those kids, that makes a difference, and their behavior changes because they're not so overwhelmed. This is what we mean by changing environmental variables.
Mm-hmm.
How this is just so much for them.
Yeah.
What a good therapist does, whether they're using ABA or they're not going to use ABA, is to figure out ways that are going to build on an individual child's strengths, that use their interests and allow them to participate in society, and it's going to give them the most choices. That's what we want. We don't just want the best behaved person. We want a person who can do as much as possible and get as much joy as possible out of the world. That's what my thoughts for ABA are. All those other things that ABA is that shouldn't be used anymore, I don't teach it. We discuss it so that they know what's out there, but that's not what ABA should be, not anymore.
All right. No, that's
Oh, we know more about autism now. We know how to do this properly.
yes, yes, and that is the emphasis. Like I'm only casually aware, but like I know that just so much about how it's been approached, how it's like officially classified, just how like much like the old diagnosis especially like only focused on like certain people to begin with
Yeah,
when like it does take on a bunch of different forms where like I might be generalizing, but my understanding is like the classical model is very good at diagnosing like young boys, for instance.
exactly. And it's you'll notice in the autism community the puzzle piece that is
Yeah.
used. They don't use just a tiny little bit of pink because boys are still diagnosed more with autism than girls. But the thing is, girls tend to go underdiagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't say that, it's technically more boys than girls. We don't know that for sure. If girls are getting underdiagnosed
Yes.
because it's being seen as something else, then those things have to change. We have new diagnostic criteria now that has changed the whole umbrella for autism spectrum disorders and made the diagnostic criteria better and easier in a lot of ways. It's also scared a lot of parents as well, because for their children that were diagnosed with PDD-NOS, which is pervasive developmental disorder, not otherwise specified, meant that their child didn't meet all the criteria for autistic disorder. So they were put into this other box.
The miscellaneous.
Miscellaneous. It's like you're almost there, but you're not quite there.
Yeah.
So they got put into that. And all those kids are going to have to be reassessed so that they can be given a proper diagnosis. Because with the DSM-5 change, it meant that those kids will now actually get a better diagnosis.
And that's,
which is a good thing.
yes.
You know, the DSM has changed over the years, and as we learn more about autism, it'll change again.
Mm-hmm. No, it's definitely like, I know it's definitely like a scary idea to have to get a new label, but on a new label, and I know like label gets sort of seen as a dirty word in a way, but at the same time, like being diagnosed correctly means that somebody can just get the most help that meets their needs and be the best person that they're capable of being.
Exactly. I think we have to use the label as an understanding, not as a limit,
Yes.
not as a negative. Just because you have the label of autism, shouldn't be autism is like autism. Okay. And here's all the strength. Let's find out all your strengths and all your interests and everything else. It should be a smile, not a frown. You
Yep.
know, it's words are just words until people put the meaning to them. And when they take a word and they turn it into something that's a negative, I get why parents don't like labels, because they don't want people just to see the label. They want people to see their child.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that. I only want the label just so that I know what I'm dealing with. But I don't know how well a child will do until I try, until I learn about the child. I learn their strengths, I learn their interests, I learn their needs, I learn their quirks. I get to know who they are. But
All right.
I can't say this is only as far as they're going to go. I can't say that because I don't know.
All right. That's definitely lovely and definitely like a really great philosophy to have. We've Suzanne, you've obviously had a chance to like explain and talk for a moment about all the things that we're going to like are going to be covered and some of the background that you need to get to this class about what AB is by its definition. I'm going to take a moment here to pivot to a question we just got from our audience. It's we've just been asked, when is the cutoff or registration for the program? I'm not sure about the exact cutoff, but I do know that classes begin for this session January 5th, 2021. So I'm assuming it'll be in the near future. Uh, I unfortunately we're not joined by one of our admissions people here today who would have like a better idea of when the exact cutoff is. I just have the start date on hand, but yes. Boom, answered in chat about who to contact for the exact specifics. Our admissions people have a local phone number, an email address, and a toll-free line. I'll repeat those once we reach the close of this session. If otherwise, they're in the Zoom chat right now. But yeah, we've talked a lot about the definitional aspect here. I'm just going to see if there's anything we want to cover, because something that I did want to ask is in terms of the course material, you've referenced that there are some great resources that are coming from the autistic community. I'm assuming that a lot of what like students will be learning from and reading as resources will be coming from there.
Yes and no.
Okay.
A vast amount of information from all over, from both sides, from the autism community and from the autistic community as well.
Okay.
Okay, because I think it's important that they have a voice and be able to speak.
All right.
I see a
Yes,
question.
from yes, would a person from Alberta that is interested in a behavior intervention certificate take this course? I'm gonna let
Yes,
you answer that.
yes, 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 absolutely. Absolutely. It would like to answer this question live. Okay, so yeah,
Yeah.
it's and just an example of that. So I've been teaching the education assistant program for 16 years now. And I've got some students that are actually working in Alberta. And one of my students, one of my past students from a long time ago, she lives in Alberta, and she attended an EA conference for EAs. And there was 100 and some odd EAs in this room. And the speaker got up and said, you know, who's heard of ABA? And she raised her hand. And then she looked around. And she was the only person in the room who raised her hand. Which told you that, you know, when it came to autism and ABA in the area that she lived in Alberta, no one had gotten that training. No one got the memo. You know, so she was really happy to be able to do that. And she's taken herself further. Now she's in her second semester at university to be a special education teacher. You know, so she's recognized that, you know, her years of being an EA was time for her to up that notch. You know, so there is, you know, within Alberta, you know, if you're wanting to get into behavior intervention, this is a really good starting point.
All right.
Definitely a good starting point.
I hope that answers your question. Okay, yes, no, Rika has put it in the chat. We are obviously still taking questions for a little bit while we have you here. If you have something that comes to mind, feel free to like type it out, share it, use the raise hand if you want to like speak live. If you're coming from Facebook, we'll get to you in the moment. There's a little bit of a delay just because like Facebook streaming it where we're at 20 seconds ago right now or something like
You're
that.
welcome, Kira.
Yep. Yes, yes. Okay. Speaking of Facebook, Rika, do we have any questions from there at this moment in time?
Yes, we actually do. A fun one, I guess. Someone
Ooh.
is asking, like, is there a difference between discrete trial training or DTT and applied behavioral analysis? And I guess as a follow-up question, they're asking if we will be covering DTT in this course.
Okay, so discrete trial training is a very rigid intervention that is used to teach a variety of things like words and colors and numbers and all sorts of things. And we talk about discrete trial training. We do talk about an overview of it, but I do not teach the specifics of it because it is more of a drill. And it's not something that would be used on every child. It is pretty rigid, and it is very structured. The person, the adult who is with the student, everything is scripted. Everything is very scripted, so it isn't anything that's done very naturally, and it uses a lot of reinforcement for short periods of time. It's not, it has a use. Don't get me wrong, discrete trial training does have a use, but it isn't something that should be used for every person with autism. It's not as effective as other interventions that we have that are more in a naturalistic environment, which work better. Hope that answers the question.
All right. That's and again, there's a lot to talk about, but this is a short course. It's a little under 40 hours, I believe. It's somewhere
30, 30
33. Yeah.
hours over 11 weeks.
Yeah. So like,
That's 33 hours of the instructor time
okay.
that you're in sessions over those 11 weeks. So I believe the sessions are on Wednesday nights. And you've got 3 hours every Wednesday. And then in between, the students are looking at case studies, or they've been assigned videos, or
Okay.
nothing overwhelming. Just based on extra stuff and
Yep.
whatnot. So
Yeah. So
yeah.
okay, it's Tuesdays, not Wednesdays, but
Yeah, from
yeah.
5 until on Tuesdays, 5 until 8. That's another good reason why I wouldn't be teaching that one, because I'm already teaching Tuesday nights,
Yes, yes.
4 nights a week already. So I
There we are.
can't fit that one.
But yeah, 33 hours of class time, probably a little bit of extra stuff so everyone's on the page when they come back in between.
Exactly.
All right. Okay. Let's see. Any other questions coming in?
Not in the Zoom chat. However, we do have another follow-up question, I guess, over Facebook. Is ABA therapy considered the gold standard when it comes to treatment for children in the spectrum?
Is ABA considered the gold standard? Personally, no, ABA is not. Again, ABA came up at a time where they needed something, that's what they had, and that's what they used. As we've learned more about autism, we have learned that there are other interventions, that there are other strategies that work. There are ABA techniques within everything that is ABA. There are some ABA techniques that work beautifully, but we have so many other therapies and interventions, like the response to intervention, and floor time. And sorry, I'm just looking up at my bookshelf because that's where I've got everything. Everything that I take my students through when we're going through it, they're going to be learning as well. And ABA, because it's so controversial, it may have been considered to be the gold standard in the 60s and 70s, but it's definitely not the gold standard now.
Okay. Hopefully that answers your question, Facebook viewer. And yes, like while we still have you, if by the way, for anyone who's watching or joining us from the future, hello, future viewers, you can always contact us. You can call. This is a continuing education program, so you can call 604-891-1256. If you're local, that's 604-891-1256. Or you can email us at ceinfo@ashtoncollege.ca. That's letter C, letter E, info@ashtoncollege.ca. And I will get we also have a toll-free number, 1-866-759-6006, 1-866-759-6006. Okay, and that's for anyone who has a future question, whether you're watching this and it'll come to you after we're ending, or people who are interested in learning some more after the fact. This has been a very informative session. Definitely been a good primer for what to expect, what you'll be learning, how the course is going to approach what is a topic with a bit of a history to it. So Suzanne, any closing thoughts?
In closing thoughts, everything we do when we're working with children, especially those with disabilities or syndromes or disorders, or however you want to call it, it's so important that we seek to understand before we seek to do anything. We have to seek to understand. These kids deserve the best future that we can help them have. And we do that working with them, not at them and not to them, but by working with them. And that should always be in our format. I always tell my students, how would you like it if somebody was always telling you what you have to do and to stop this now and to do that? You wouldn't like it. So why would we be doing this to children?
All right.
So it's just just having that.
Okay, thank you. All right. I guess we are going to end things off for today because you have places to be this evening as well. So yeah, thank you for joining us. If you came to us live, thank you for watching this. If you're coming to us from the future on YouTube or when we host this again on Facebook, again, ceinfo@ashtoncollege.ca, 604-891-1256 or 1-866-759-6006. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Have a good evening.